Welcome to the Advanced Persistent Security Podcast, where we discuss the world of IT and cybersecurity. Don't be left in the dark about what's going on in the world around you. Here is your host, Joe Gray.
Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to discuss government backdoors and their effects on encryption. We'll provide an update for the Experian data breach that affected T-Mobile. We'll talk about the Scottrade cyber attack, how nuclear facilities are at a higher risk for cyber attack, and the Dow Jones cyber attack. So we're going to start out with the government backdoors as a threat to security. Basically where this comes from is right now within the federal government with Congress, several representatives are pushing for organizations to provide backdoors into their encryption so the government can effectively spy on everything. This has the backing of the FBI, the NSA, CIA, and it has the opposition of the cryptography, cybersecurity sectors, privacy advocates, and the EFF, which is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. This is a group that is very active in maintaining the right to privacy amongst citizens and private entities. Either way, to provide a little bit of a backstory, NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technologies, which is a subordinate organization to the Department of Commerce, and is responsible for creating standards, as the name implies, for a variety of topics. Notably, in the cybersecurity world, the NIST 800 series is the bread and butter of federal cybersecurity, and for organizations that don't want to implement, say, SANS Top 20 or any other schema, such as PCI, HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, Graham-Leach-Bliley, etc., they can implement this. It costs nothing to use. They also have a thing called the Federal Information Processing Standards, FIPS. So in the mid-70s, they came about. In 1994, FIPS 185 was released. That was an encryption standard that was created with a backdoor that was not available to anyone else. Look at 1994 in comparison to 2015. It's a lot harder to hide that kind of information on the internet, and there weren't as many cybersecurity experts at the time, although the ones that were there did disagree, and they recently introduced recommendations to eliminate the standard altogether. But here's the question. Are we safer with the backdoors in our encryption? An MIT report said that 15 of the leading cryptographers in the world stated that exceptional access would be detrimental, and such access will open doors that criminals and other malicious nation states can attack. Obviously, if they can attack the federal government and people like Edward Snowden and Bradley Manning can leak the information can get out, and I do tend to agree with these 15 cryptographers. The government, however, don't think it would become a vulnerability because there would be lesser intent to exploit them, but honestly, I think that's because they were misinformed. You can always take the key under the flower pot or under the doormat analogy for this. If there's a backdoor to an encryption algorithm, it's easier to exploit the backdoor than the algorithm. It's just like it's easier to look under the flower pot or the doormat to find a key to someone's house as opposed to trying to pick the lock. Given the blunders in federal cybersecurity over the recent years, I think it's a reasonable deduction that one of the four scenarios would occur if the legislation passes. Someone will breach the federal government and discover the backdoor. Someone, such as Snowden or Manning, similar behavior at least, considering neither of them have access anymore, would leak the programs to the public. A researcher or hacker will discover the backdoor and go public with it, or everybody that wants encryption will move to the dark web and start using Tor and onion routers, etc. That's improbable, but definitely a possibility. Next up, we're going to provide a quick update on the Experian data breach. Essentially, right now, we don't know anything else on the technical side, but we do know that Experian and T-Mobile are facing a growing list of lawsuits after 15 million T-Mobile customers and attempted customers had their data leaked from an Experian server. We have statements from Experian apologizing, saying that they, quote, take privacy very seriously and they understand that this news is both stressful and frustrating. They sincerely apologize for the concern and stress that this event may cause. T-Mobile, on the other hand, their CEO is taking a different approach. His statement, I have an excerpt here that says, "Obviously, I am incredibly angry about this data breach, and we will institute a thorough review of our relationship with Experian. But right now, my top concern and first focus is assisting any and all customers affected. I take our customer and prospective customer privacy very seriously. There is no small issue for us. I do want to assure our customers that neither T-Mobile systems nor network were part of this intrusion and did not involve any payment card numbers or bank account information. The way I read this is it's an indicator that the information from the data breach is already for sale on the darknet. It's already there. Somebody's got it. The damage control for this will take years, maybe even decades. Some people may never recover from this. And I find the oddest part to be that Experian said, we will give you credit monitoring service for free, but the problem is the credit monitoring service is coming from Experian. It seems counterintuitive, and how can an organization monitor the credit of all these users and tell them in good faith when an issue occurs when they couldn't monitor and manage the security of their servers used to check credit for T-Mobile? I'm sure there's more to come. We're just touching the tip of the proverbial iceberg, and we're going to see a rise in identity theft, attacks on other credit reporting and checking services, and maybe even attacks on TransUnion and Equifax. They may go after T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, etc. Right now it seems like they have a pretty nice target in Experian and the other credit reporting bureaus. Sit tight. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be discussing the Scottrade cyber attack.
Are you looking for a place to advertise to the unique audience of IT security professionals and enthusiasts? Look no further. Advanced Persistent Security is seeking sponsors. This slot could be yours. Contact sales at advancedpersistentsecurity.net for more information.
Thanks for hanging out. Now we're going to discuss the Scottrade data breach. Scottrade being one of the main websites that acts as brokerage firms for day traders and casual traders, the other two being E-Trade and TD Ameritrade. Basically, 4.6 million customers of the St. Louis-based company have been hit with a different breach. It focused primarily on snagging contact information, but it did have some social security numbers in it. That's according to Engadget. The trading platform and client funds were not compromised, and client passwords were fully encrypted at all times. Apparently, it has not been proven that they have been decrypted at this time. The firm acknowledged that unknown criminals had hacked into its network. It didn't know about the theft until it was alerted by the FBI in August. This is coming from Fox 59. That's not something I would actually admit, because the attack occurred in 2013. Let that sink in. 2013. We are now in 2015, almost 2016. This shows customers, investors, and other attackers that they are not adequately monitoring their information systems. It's not the right message to send. Scottrade's official statement says that Scottrade is quick to stress that neither passwords nor trading platforms were at risk, and it's offering a free year's worth of identity protection services if you're still worried about fraud 2 years after the incident took place. All I have to say is I hope it is not with Experian. Ha ha. Aside from failing to discover it, Scottrade didn't inform customers since they were also unaware. They had no suspicion. It could have been phishing, identity theft attempts that came from it. They did not know. They could not tell anyone anything otherwise, so of course people are going to apply a false high sense of trust with them. For a company to be almost exclusively in the finance and stock trading industries, security has to be taken more seriously. My initial suggestions would be require the use of a strong password, change them every 60 to 90 days, require complex passwords or passphrases, avoid dictionary terms, require special characters and numbers, and set a failed attempt threshold such as 3 or 5. Then you're going to want to sanitize any inputs from forms, API calls, and databases. Consider multi-factor authentication, and then internally establish an awareness training program or a vulnerability management program. Make sure that if you do have either of these programs, that it is running, it is up to date, and it is working. You should test it. You should be sending phishing emails to your employees, not from your work account, but from a bogus account from a place like FishMe or Advanced Persistent Security. For vulnerability management, if you conduct vulnerability scans, that gives you a very good idea of how well your vulnerability management program is working. It's not inclusive. It's a starting point. They have to be subject to PCI, maybe even Sarbanes-Oxley, possibly others. They should maybe consider the SANS Top 20. That's a good starting point as well. If it was a web-based type attack, the OWASP Top 10 is a good place to go. They could always go to the NIST Risk Management Framework. Everyone from the management, being the CEO, to the janitor has to adopt a culture of security. They need to nurse it, nourish it, and inspire everyone to be secure. That's all we have for this. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will discuss how nuclear facilities are at risk for cyber attacks.
Are you subscribed to this podcast? If not, please do so on iTunes and at advancedpersistentsecurity.net/podcast.
Thanks for sitting through the break. Now we are going to discuss how nuclear facilities are at risk of cyber attack. A report by Chatham House has shown that nuclear facilities are a major risk for cyber attack. A lot of equipment comes with factory set passwords that are very simple, like 1234, admin or password, and it's being used, it's not being changed. So the Register referenced a few cybersecurity attacks from 1992 to 2014 in a PDF report, also by Chatham House. Basically, it provides 6 incidents that are noteworthy. In 1992, at a plant in Lithuania, a technician intentionally introduced a virus into the system to, quote, highlight cybersecurity vulnerabilities. 2003, a plant in Ohio was infected by the slammer worm, which disabled a safety monitoring system for 5 hours. 2006, a plant in Alabama experienced a malfunction of both the reactor circulation pumps and the condensate demineralizer controllers, which is a type of programmable logic controller. The Hatch nuclear plant was shut down as an unintended consequence of a software update from a contractor in 2008. In 2010, an unnamed Russian nuclear plant was revealed by Eugene Kaspersky to be badly infected by Stuxnet. And in 2014, a South Korean nuclear power plant was breached and information was stolen. The attack was subsequently attributed to North Korea. So they're scary. These are incredibly scary for a multitude of reasons. Obviously, nuclear meltdown, runaway reactor, those are pretty scary reasons. Other reasons would be countries trying to steal other countries' nuclear data. And the policies and guidelines, quite honestly, need to be revamped to fix any of these issues. A few basics would be change all default passwords. Make them to where they're just a random string of 16 to 20 characters. The passwords should have a policy that require them to be changed regularly. You should train the employees, of course. This is something we hammer with every single blog post and everything we talk about. Training, training, training. Other recommendations are implementing rules where they're not already in place to promote good IT hygiene, and enforcing the rules that do exist should be basically around the use of personal devices such as smartphones. If you want to know more, we have a link to the Chatham House report on the blog page. We also have a blog post of how the United States Department of Energy has been subjected to several cyber attacks, specifically 150 successful attacks in the past few years. That's all we have for this. Sit tight. We'll come back and discuss Dow Jones cyber attack. Then we will wrap this up.
Don't forget to check out our blog at advancedpersistentsecurity.net/blog. Follow us on Twitter at ADVPersistentSEC and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/advancedpersistentsecurity.
Welcome back. We're going to discuss the Dow Jones data breach and close out this podcast. So according to the Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones and Company are the next name in the line of cyber attacks and data breaches. There is not any direct forensic evidence for the attack, and they have taken the steps to stop the breach. You may want to note that Dow Jones is a subordinate organization to News Corp, which also owns Wall Street Journal, MarketWatch, and Barron's. So the goal of this hack seems to be to get contact information, according to Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal. They did get payment card information for fewer than 3,500 individuals. They're reporting that the system was breached between August 2012 and June 2015. That's absolutely too long of a period for any cyber attack or data breach to be in progress without detection, especially when customer payment data is included. Especially when you're a publicly traded company like Dow Jones. Well, they have the index, close enough. And also when you are that big. The CEO said the company found no direct evidence that information was stolen. They appeared to target contact information in order to send fraudulent messages to customers, he added. He also stated that we understand that this incident was likely part of a broader campaign involving a number of other victim companies. Okay, even with that, 3 years is too long. So with this, it's just showing that corporate America is not as secure as they want everyone to believe. So taking this long to discover it is uncalled for. I do give them kudos for reporting it quickly and seeming to be transparent, but it should have been avoided. Depending on how the attack occurred, there are several mitigating measures they could have applied. First and foremost, training. Training. Insider threat awareness training program, good information security policy. That definitely could have spelled out all of this, and they could have been proactively taking the steps and auditing things like software, executables, VPN connections, all the things that's used once the machines are infected. A security awareness program that could have educated users about all the fun stuff, including passwords, internet security and safety, phishing, social engineering, etc. It could have prevented or delayed it, either way. Having a vulnerability management and scanning program, it could have prevented any information disclosure vulnerabilities from unpatched software. That would allow them to at least see that they have those vulnerabilities and prompted someone to fix it. Strong passwords or passphrases, and then sanitization of inputs to prevent code injection, specifically SQL injection attacks. I mean, some vulnerabilities may not be able to be fixed. You can put mitigating measures in place for that. And if you have a sound security awareness program and a good policy that you actually implement, you can minimize the threat from these. The issue here is too often organizations see the minimum security requirements as the end-all, be-all without thinking of the possible damage to the organization and its reputation. Regulatory compliance is great, but it's not holistic. It's not for the entire organization. It's a small subset. Security is a journey, not a destination. The sooner they figure this out, the better off they will be. Companies need to be proactive about their security programs so that they can ensure that incidents like this don't happen. Or if they do have to say, we were data breached, the only thing they got was our host names of database servers and 2 web servers. That is pretty benign. But anytime customer information is out, that's definitely no good. That's it for this week. If you like what you heard, love us on iTunes and give us a 5-star review. We're also on Stitcher Radio, YouTube, and Spreaker. Be sure to like us there as well. If you have any feedback, don't hesitate to send it to us at podcast@advancedpersistentsecurity.net. Until next week, take it easy.
Welcome to the Advanced Persistent Security Podcast, where we discuss the world of IT and cybersecurity. Don't be left in the dark about what's going on in the world around you. Here is your host, Joe Gray.